Okay, hey, we're doing another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Very special segment reviewing this beautiful IWC or International Watch Company watch. A little bit about their brand. They were founded back in 1868 and they are Swiss made. This particular unit was lent in by the good folks over at Belmont Watches here locally in San Diego. So big shout out to them for one, having outstanding inventory and impeccable taste, as well as always being happy to support the channel. So if you guys do want to support them by checking out those links down in the description, that would definitely be greatly appreciated. The story of IWC is that back in 1868, Boston watchmaker Florentine Ariosto Jones founded the International Watch Company, and it was in Schaffhausen, which is far from the watchmaking centers of French-speaking Switzerland, and his plan was to combine advanced American production technologies with the skilled craftsmanship for which Swiss watchmakers were famous. Another one of the great kind of historical pieces of information about IWC is that they were one of the 5 original Flieger manufacturers, along with A. Long & Zone, Wempe, Walter Storrs, also known as Stova now, as well as Lasher & Company, known as Laco today. In terms of the type of watch, this is not a Flieger. This is an everyday watch. Some key characteristics and design. When you're looking for something you can wear every day, you're really just going to want that versatile blend of sporty and dressy attributes. This also falls within the subgenre of integrated steel watches that are really back in style, along with, of course, your typical Gerald Genta designs, whether it be from Patek or Audemars Piguet. Everyone from Tissot to Tudor to Gerard Perregaux, Bell and Ross, and Bremont have recently taken a crack at the classic formula made popular by Genta. Even Christopher Ward has made some waves within the space. So this is their IWC Ingenieur Automatic, reference IW323904. With all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, what a beauty we have here. So a little bit about this model. Although IWC introduced the Ingenieur line back in 1955, the name of this watch family is most frequently associated with Gerald Genta, because during the 1970s, the legendary watch designer from Geneva created the Ingenieur SL, reference number 1832, which was detailing his artistic vision of a stainless steel luxury sports watch with an integrated bracelet. Now, in terms of this particular model and reference, it was actually originally released back in 2013, and this specific example is from 2018, and this is the one that you can actually buy from Belmont Watches for $6,900. So definitely quite a deal when you consider that they recently re-released a similar Genta style Ingenieur recently, and those go for $11,700. So there are some differences here. That's definitely not the same watch, but I will say that this has kind of become the connoisseur's choice when it comes to these Ingenieurs. Of course, apart from the classic 1970s design. Now, this one is just in immaculate condition. It has a 40 millimeter diameter. It's only 9.9 millimeters thick, so very, very thin, 45.5 millimeters lug to lug. And if you were to even take the extremities here from that kind of leading male end length there, it would still only be about, I want to say 50 millimeters tip to tip. So not too shabby. And again, that is only if you're going to go from the full extremity there. But I will say this wears really fantastic. And I don't have a particularly wide wrist. I do have a larger wrist, but it's more round than it is flat. So it's, believe it or not, I can't pull off every single large watch that comes through the channel. Now, this sapphire is flat with an inner AR coating, and it does an amazing job of showcasing just the level of sharpness on this gorgeous opaline dial. Now, actually, this has an inner and an outer AR coating, and I have to say that it's in great condition. You can see there that it is just beautifully done, and it just looks great still. So that's awesome, especially considering this is from 2018. Now, the crown is screw down and signed beautifully, guys. Look at the details there. I'll just leave you there. Look at the beveling on these crown guards. Nice and angular, and that's one thing that this model does really well. I would say even more so than the latest release, which is a nice watch, don't get me wrong, but this one I think is a little bit more angular and a little bit less smoothed out. Of course, the most recent release does have that in-house movement with the longer power reserve, but they did try to make it a little bit more true to the original by rounding it off and generally simplifying the aesthetic, whereas here you're going to get a lot of really beautifully complex. Let me give this quick wipe on that case side there. A lot of beautifully complex transitions, right, which isn't the easiest thing to do. And you can see there, just look at these little details. I love the play and the balance of the roundness and the way that it drapes over your wrist, but also the sharpness and the angular facets just covering this watch. Now, getting into some more of the details, the movement that's in here is known as the IWC automatic caliber 30110, but it's basically based off of a base ETA 2892. So you're going to get a 42-hour power reserve, and it's going to be beating at 4 hertz or a 28,800 vibration per hour beat rate. Also, you check out the case back here. It's a beautiful solid case back, nicely etched, and it just has that nice sporty feel. Then you get into this gorgeous dial, that matte opaline or pale silver dial, which will render visually white in most lighting conditions. Looks gorgeous with those applied indices. Really beautifully executed there. There's a lot of layers to this stepped dial. You even get a stepped date window there that is really well integrated at the 3 o'clock. These polished rhodium plated hands, as well as some unspecified superluminova, which glows green. So I'm going to say it's probably C1. This also, thanks to that screw down crown, as well as having really nice seals being used, has 12 bar water resistance, which is 120 meters. So a little bit more than your average 100-meter kind of everyday sports watch, which is great. And for them to even advertise it as 120 meters, that means that they tested it 10% beyond that. So that's really good. Now, in terms of this integrated bracelet, it is just gorgeous and still in immaculate condition. Look at that fine hairline brushing, the beautiful bevels there, the sharp transitions, although not sharp to the touch, definitely very high definition to the eye there. Very impressive. You're getting the stainless steel H-Link bracelet, and it does have their proprietary Easy Link adjustment in terms of pin removal, where essentially you will press with one pusher into the circle, and then with the other pusher you will push to slide the pin out, and everything is kind of retained by tension from a spring internally. One thing that I think is actually better about this model than the new model is that they use a single deployant. You can see here it still has the double pusher, but it folds over like a single versus the dual or butterfly style deployant you would see in the modern release. I should say more modern release, but I prefer this setup. I think it's just a little bit more intuitive. There's less issues with that, and when I see something like this, I feel like it's just a better level of engineering. It feels more cohesive and intuitive, and you can see, man, even that scissor folding section of the clasp, beautifully milled, and it has this great matte kind of blasted finish that has a bit of even a sheen to it that I will say goes underappreciated, as it is under the wrist most of the time, but it does look really fantastic. Now, some stats about this bracelet. It's going to taper from about 26 millimeters at the widest flare down to about 20 millimeters down here on the underside. So very nice. And they do have a half link included as well that isn't on the bracelet right now, because this actually fits my wrist perfectly without it. But it is there if you do have a slightly larger wrist than 7.5 inches. And if you have a smaller wrist, then at least you can remove links as well as add a half link or not to get that perfect fit. So with all that said, let's actually get this piece on the wrist and just show you guys how beautifully it wears. Okay, guys, as you can see on my 7.5 inch wrist,
this is an absolute stunner. Check out how flat it lays. Of course, if I get my wrist a little bit closer to the camera, there'll be a little bit of perception distortion there. So it's going to appear much larger, you can see on the wrist. But if I keep my wrist nice and low here, you get a better idea. But hey, if you want a detailed look, what I'll do is I'll tighten up the frame here so you guys can get a truer aspect ratio of how this may lay on your own wrist. And you can see, even though I don't have the widest wrist because it's pretty round, you can see pretty thick from this aspect, it still drapes just beautifully on the wrist and melts away. But I will say it still does have a really nice level of heft to it, so it does give you that luxury vibe. Although of course it is a tool watch, it's a sports watch, but man, we all know that feeling you try to capture with these types of integrated sports watches. It's that luxury vibe, that feeling of access, right? Excess. And it just works. This model is one that really has gone underappreciated for so long, and it's great to see, of course, that now the market is starting to catch up in terms of folks really getting back into this Gero Genta style. So really beautiful, guys, and I just can't get enough of it on the wrist. This is definitely grail worthy. It just falls within that, you know, a collection of one watches. This could be your one watch. I mean, it will dress up beautifully, dresses down beautifully, and of course is quite capable. It has a brand with real honest prestige, and it's just you know, I can't overstate just how wonderful this piece is, and then also the fact that you're able to find an example in this great condition today. So with that said, let's actually get set up for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. As you can see, very nice Lume, very clean, very crisp, very sharply applied here. But of course, this isn't some dive watch, so it doesn't need to really be quite a Lume beast. But one thing I always like to work in, of course, is going to be that low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is really nice to see how these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And I will say, wow, guys, just like you would expect, because of that mixture of finishes, that complex and compound finishing, it's just gorgeous. Check out the way the light glides uniformly over that beautiful luxury level hairline brushing, as well as those little deep, just lustrous moments of polished accents there, which look amazing. And it's just gorgeous, guys. And even if I get into some harsh lighting situations here, which typically might expose a type of, you know, any types of production defects, you might just catch a couple of little micro scratches, because this is an older watch, but nothing where it looks like it got into an accident, right? Just they're those little things that just come with wear. So a nice thing is, as immaculate as this is, you don't have to worry about babying it. You can take it on those everyday adventures, and it will serve you really well. My goodness, what a looker. It looks great. My gosh, it wears well, guys. Closing thoughts on here. On the wrist, great ergonomics, you know, hugs the wrist and rides very slim, while still offering that substantial heft that you would associate with a luxury timepiece. Now, in terms of model variants, this is currently discontinued, but of course recently updated to a now in-house driven model that is available. And then if you want to say comparable models, let's do it. You know, those newer releases that start around, you know, 11,700 MSRP. They're definitely, you know, up-spec models in terms of that 120-hour power reserve in-house movement, and that more smoothed out design. I will say, aesthetically, this one is, I believe, a little bit thinner.
and also a little bit more complex, which I can appreciate. It just, this one feels like it's not trying quite as hard, and it feels a little bit more organic in terms of its design, which I really like. So for me, guys, the bottom line is with the newer Ingenieur out, this generation has really been elevated from a niche favorite, which it has been, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of folks that swear by this watch, to really elevating it into a level of a connoisseur's classic. So definitely get them while you can, get them in great condition and wear them and enjoy them. This is definitely, you know, grail level for me. I would love to add this one to the collection. Yeah, this thing's gorgeous. It's going to be sad getting this one all boxed up, but it will be nice to know if any of you guys out there that are watching this are the ones who purchased it. So let me know in the comments below if this is one that you snagged, or if you were able to snag it elsewhere and have a great story, definitely let me know as well. So with that said, if you like the video, please do a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.